Welcome to this course in Global English, Unit 24, Writing Module, Unit 3. Today, we are going to look at another aspect of writing electronic mails. Many of us worry a great deal about words and sentences, about grammar, spelling and vocabulary, which is all right, we should worry, but few of us worry about yet another important aspect of writing mails, that is called politeness. Is our mail a pleasure to read by others? Okay. Do we write such that others enjoy reading it? Do we sound, but are we also socially correct? Do we follow what we call social etiquette? Remember, language is a social entity, a social thing. Hardly any one of us speaks only to ourselves. We use language mostly to communicate, to write or to talk or listen to or to read from others. So, language is a social tool. It helps us connect with other human beings, sometimes with even other animals. Therefore, it is important, of course, that we must be grammatically correct, otherwise comprehension would not take place. If we are grammatically incorrect, there may be confusion and lack of understanding. If we are socially incorrect, if we do not observe social correctness, then we may not be as effective, our mails may not be welcome, we may not be seen as pleasant people, and our writing, our communication may not be effective. Therefore, a lot of people who have thought about these things say that you can get away with grammatical incorrectness. I mean, you should not write grammatically incorrect sentences, but if at all by mistake it happens, that is not such a cause for worry as to make a mistake of social etiquette. In this mail today, in this unit today, we will talk about the issue of social correctness. How can we write polite mails? How can we write polite communications in English? Politeness in English, English of course has words like sir, madam, honor, my lord, my, your honor, etc., etc., your majesty, your honor, your excellency, that sort of thing. But they are all limited to a particular set of interaction. Unlike many other languages, including unlike many Indian languages, modern English that is spoken and written today, does not have two kinds of pronouns or two kinds of verbs to indicate formal and intimate use. In many Indian languages, let us say in Hindi, you have three kinds of pronouns, aap, tum and tu. Three kinds of verbs. So, aap is formal, tum is familiar, and tu is very intimate. Okay. So, these three kinds of pronouns. Then there are three kinds of verbs to go with these pronouns. So, for example, you can say aap baithiye, tum baitho, or tu bait. Okay. Many other Indian languages also have similar things. Bangla, Tamil, Odia, Telugu, you know. Tamil also have Ninga Ukarang and Ni Ukkar. Okay. But English does not have this kind of modern English. Earlier, of course, they had. Until about 100 years ago, English also had two sets. It had thou and you. You was like aap in Hindi and thou was like tum. Okay. But modern English has only one you. It is there for the king, it is there for the king's driver. Of course, in formal situations, king will be addressed as your majesty and the driver will not be addressed as your majesty. But in other situations, let us say the prime minister won't be addressed as your majesty and the prime minister's driver will not be addressed as your majesty either. Okay. So, they are both you. Now, what does it mean? Does it mean English does not have any indicator of politeness? English language does not use markers of politeness? Is it a rude language? In this language, there is no way of showing politeness to the listener, to the addressee, to whom you write mails. English also has, like any other language, you see, politeness is not just a matter of words, it is also a matter of intonation, it is also a matter of the tempo, the speed at which you speak. We will talk about those things in the next module on speaking. But here, let us look at sentence construction in writing. How can we show politeness in written English? Of course, there are some words like please, thanks, sorry, pardon me, so kind of you, most kind of you, kindly. Okay, you use these words and you indicate that you are really, you really respect the listener, the reader. So, a polite sentence also is different from an intimate sentence. An intimate sentence can be tell me the time, but a polite sentence may look like a question, but it is not a question, it is a request. A polite request may look like, can you tell me the time please? The answer here is not yes, the answer here is 6:28, because it is not a question which you can say yes or no. Like for example, is it Monday? No. Is it Wednesday? Yes. So, similarly, it is not a question, can you tell me the time please? Yes. It is not a question, it is a request. Can you tell me the time please? Yes, sorry, it is 6:29 now. So, in English sometimes a request may look like a question because it has been, this request has been made in a very polite manner. So, English also uses some words to indicate politeness and a particular kind of sentence construction and particular kinds of intonation to indicate politeness. Let us look at more of them. I am sure you from your school days this rhyme. You must have got it by heart, and your school teacher must have asked you for a repeat of these lines frequently. But this is so true, nothing loses you friends and makes you wins you friends more than a polite language. And what is the marker of a polite language? The first few words are these, as the rhyme says, hearts like doors. Once again, hearts like doors will open with ease to very, very little keys. And don't forget that two of these are I thank you and if you please. Okay. These little markers of politeness, thank you, please, or if you make a mistake with whether deliberate or unintended, it doesn't matter. If you say sorry, you are back to where you began. Actually, you are a better friend, you are a greater friend with the person who otherwise might feel hurt. In many places, therefore, you will find that a request is not, it is formed as a question, but it is not delivered as, the intonation might be different. Say for example, on a railway trains, in buses, in many English speaking countries, the ticket checker checks your ticket and asks you, can I see your ticket please? Okay, which can become shorter, ticket please, or in a great hurry if the train compartment is crowded and the train ticket checker has to check all the passengers, then the checker might just say please. The point I am making is other words can go away, but please does not. Please stays. So you must make it a habit to make use of this word please as often as you make a request or give an option to your listener, to your reader. I'll give you more examples as we go along. Okay. English also has words like madam, sir, miss, but or particularly when you speak, you use these words very frequently, but when you write, you use some of these words at the beginning. You can say sir, madam, miss, mister, ms. I mean, if you don't, are particular about indicating the marital status of women, as we don't indicate the marital status of men. So just as we write Mr. for men, you can write MS. So just as you write Mr. for men, madam, sir, miss, Mr., ms, etc. Okay. So you can also write MS or Ms for women. Some people like to be addressed by their designation. So you can say Dr. Smith or Dr. Clinton, or you can say Professor Swaminathan, or you can say Professor Deshmukh, or some officers in many English speaking countries would not like to be addressed by their name. So you can say dear officer. Okay, you can begin your mail that way. Or if you are really writing to someone very high up, you can say dear governor. Okay. So in a formal writing, all of these things are possible. Of course, in informal writing, to sound polite, you write my dear, or some people writing between men and women, writing between friends or between couples, also use words like my dear or my darling or honey or sweetie. There also are a number of films where you will find friends or couples addressing each other as my dear, my darling, or honey or sweetie. Okay, you can watch some of these films and see. Actually, more than a textbook, more than a book of grammar on the subject of politeness, nothing can teach you more in a shorter period of time than watching a good social movie. Okay. So and you will notice how these things are done in formal and in informal situations. Let's move. You can have degrees of formality. Say polite ways of beginning. If you want to be very formal, you can say this is to draw your attention to the notice about our meeting scheduled at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Okay, but this is very formal. This used to be in the days when offices had a very rigidly defined hierarchy. The boss would never leave his or her chair and go to see a junior assistant. In today's office, where everyone is equal to everyone else, this is slightly archaic. All right, I guess you think that old lady is more polite, but then I'll ask you why. So let us see. The old lady greets the young lady. She says hello or good afternoon, good evening, good morning. These are also the marks of politeness. When you wish somebody well, So actually, what is good afternoon or good morning? The full form is I wish you a good morning. I wish you a good afternoon. But the young lady doesn't even respond to the greeting from the old lady. In answer to hello, she could have said hello, but she doesn't. Okay. Actually, the old lady introduces herself, which proper social etiquette demands. I am Mrs. Ada Quonset. I am not sure if she should have said I am Mrs. She could as well have said I am Ada Quonset. But the young lady doesn't do even that. The young lady almost comes to giving her first name, Tanya, and then she remembers that no, she is not going to treat the old lady respectfully, and therefore she just goes to a formal name. I am Mrs. Livingston. And then she wanted to say I am pleased to meet you, but she suddenly remembers on the spot that she need not be respectful to this lady. So she cuts that sentence and simply says, please to, not even that, and she cuts that sentence and says, sit down, almost shouting at the old lady. But the old lady does not lose her cool. The old lady is still polite. She says, oh, thank you, my dear. It was a long walk from the gate. She expresses her gratitude that she has been allowed to sit down in the office of the young lady. The young lady then instructs her assistants, and with her assistant she uses the word please. Notice when she instructs her young assistant, the young man, she says, while we are talking, please shut the door. Okay. So when talking to her colleague, the young lady uses the word please, but not with the old. So these are the markers. These things indicate who is polite or who is more polite. The young lady speaks to the old lady in that sort of language. Well, you have done this sort of thing before. Okay. She doesn't bother to say, can you please tell me if you have done this sort of thing before. The old lady, still very polite, says, oh yes, my dear. Okay. These are the marks, These things, these elements in the language indicate who is polite. Actually, it will be a good idea for you to take conversation. You can look at the net, okay, lots of them, texts, and look at any set of texts, of conversation, and see if words like these have been used. That will not only make you familiar with these words, that can also in you create a habit of speaking more politely, unless you already do so. Okay, or habit of speaking politely if you really do not do so as now, both speaking and writing. Once it's a part of your habit, then it doesn't matter. You find that it comes to you naturally even when you write. Let's go to the next. Actually, I took this conversation just wondering, preparing for this lesson. I thought I should take something interesting, and I took this conversation from an old English movie, a film called Airport, released in 1970. Well, some people think it's a very good movie. It's a thriller where somebody wants to blow a plane up, and how a stowaway, a passenger traveling without ticket, helps them save the plane and get hold of the bomber before much mischief is done. Okay, it's a very interesting movie. If you haven't watched it, and if you have time, you may watch it, but then pay attention to these words of social intercourse, social interaction. Okay, the old lady is obviously polite because she is also a lawbreaker, and she wants to earn the sympathy of the young lady who is the law enforcing officer. She can send this old lady to police. Okay, so she is at the moment trying to find out how an old lady can manage to get onto an aircraft without buying a ticket. Once she knows that, she can instruct her colleagues to be more careful during that procedure and prevent other stowaways, other ticketless travelers from getting onto the aircraft. So that is a part of the movie. Interesting. You can see if you like. Look at some more of the same conversation. Okay, and on your sheet or on your computer, mark those words that indicate politeness. Here I have done it for us. Why do you think the old lady uses expressions like, well, you see, I am a widow and I have a married daughter in New York. Okay, or so I get lonely, or oh yes, my dear, or oh my dear. And then paying compliment. I like the Transglobal the best, though the young lady is a little sarcastic. She says, well, it's nice to get a satisfied customer. From the tone and from the context, that the young lady is not really appreciative, and she need not be, because the old lady obviously is a lawbreaker. Actually, going strictly by law, she should be handed over to the police. But because of the bad publicity that they might get, as the old lady points out to them, she is not handed over to the police. But you will see, you will notice that because the old lady wants the sympathy of the young lady, so she uses a lot of those words that will do two things. Number one, that will include the young lady in her story. Therefore, she uses expressions that are inclusive. So, you see, or we, or uses words that paint her or that present her in a very in a situation that arouses sympathy or even pity. I am lonely, I have no money, how can I, she says later in the conversation, I can't possibly afford a ticket. I just have my social security and a small pension that my late husband left me. So again and again she emphasizes her poverty, her old age, her loneliness, and using a language that is polite as polite can be to include the young lady in her story. Actually, even when we are not at fault, we are not lawbreakers, we can use some of these expressions, not all of them of course, not my dear and use, but sometimes expressions like you see may be all right. For example, if you are addressing a meeting of a group of colleagues and if the sub company has been through a critical situation, then you can obviously say, well friends, you see, we have just now got out of a difficult situation. Let's do our best not to get into a similar situation ever again. Okay. So, some of these things may be all right in both spoken and written context. Okay. But the point here is, what do we learn? We learn that it is language that creates a sympathetic listener, a sympathetic reader, and that helps you get your point across. Of course, this is how you begin your mails. Particularly, I am not talking of intimate mails. Intimate mails are intimate mails. They can be done in many different ways, and that usually they are not part of something which you might call a global course. They are between friends who know each other, members of the family who know each other or one another. Really, they can communicate even without language. Here we are talking about formal situations, global situations, when you write to strangers or when you write to people you hardly know enough. Okay? How do you write? So that you treat them as friends and yet formally. So, these are the ways. Dear Mr. or Ms. or dear Sir, Madam, or simply Sir, Madam. Okay. Some of these other things are frozen. You can, I want to say, dear respected Mr. Modi, not really required. You can say dear Mr. Modi, or you can say address Mr. M. K. Gandhi or Mr. Modi, whatever the full name, and then you can say sir. That's enough. But some of these other things are were used, or they are still used in law courts. Say for example, a lawyer does not address a justice of law only as sir. So, a lawyer is expected to say your honor, your my lord. In lower courts, judges are addressed as my honor, but in high courts and Supreme Court, they are addressed as my lord. My is pronounced as me because it is done in a hurry, it is done with little attention. So, the vowel is reduced and it becomes me. Actually, it is my lord. Okay. So, these things are in a very specific situation. You use majesty or this sort of thing to kings or like that. In army and in other companies, sometimes you address your seniors with the designation. So, I have some information for you, brigadier sir, a lieutenant colonel or a colonel might say, okay, or a brigadier might say to a general, at your service general, or the parade is ready for your inspection general, that can be said. But these are highly specific, marked situations. In ordinary everyday life, we just use dear Mr. or dear Ms. or dear Sir, Madam or Sir, Madam without dear, and then with or without the name. Okay. So, for example, you can say dear Mr. Subramaniam or Mr. Subramaniam, and then you can say sir, or you can say Mrs. Subramaniam and you can say sir or madam. That is enough. Anything more than that can be a little archaic, old fashioned, may even be frozen, may not create a very friendly feeling, on the other hand may create a funny feeling in the reader. So, you can see that there are degrees of formality. from very formal or formal. You can even write in a manner, for example, this is formal. The dump yard for trash may please be removed from residential street like ours. You are using passive voice. You are not asking the listener or the reader directly, please remove the dump yard from our street. You are using passive voice. Very formal, very frozen. You cannot even write that directly. So, you say, most humbly and respectfully I beg to state that the trash dump yard may please be removed from our residential street. Okay. The other things can be still more archaic. I beg to state, and then you towards, rather than just say thanks, some people used to add in the old times, coming generations of my family will remember your honor most gratefully. These things are not required. They are totally out of fashion. They might look funny and they may not create any sense of respect for you in the reader. It is good to be formal or even a smart casual. So, formal you can say, I have the pleasure to bring to your attention, or you can simply say, I wish to bring to your attention. That may be enough. You can just say, I wish to bring to your attention, or this is to bring to your attention. A more business-like will be this. Please be kind enough to help us remove the dump yard from our residential areas to some other place where people don't live or away from their homes, okay, so that they are spared the bad smell, etc., etc. You are still respectful, business-like, you say that in few words, and you appreciate the fact that your reader does not have all the time to read only your letter. A very good way of indicating politeness in English is by using words like may, might, okay, etc., etc. You see, English is a very different kind of language in this sense. Unlike many other languages, you do not use imperative sentences in this manner, unless of course you are in intimate situation. You can say sit down or sit down please, but in all other situations, in the armed forces also, among policemen, military forces, they don't say you may please sit down, or you may please go for quick march. They say quick march. They don't say please halt. They just say halt, okay, or stand at ease, or stand at attention. So they just say attention or stand at ease. That is indicated. They don't use may or might. But in all other civil communications, this is hardly the case that you say sit down. You usually say you may sit down please, okay. Even in written mails, you may have seen my earlier mail, okay. You may please find time. Can you please find time to answer it? Can you please take time to answer it if you are giving a reminder, okay. Otherwise you wait. So, use of words like may, might, can, could, shall, should, will, would, must, ought, these things indicate different degrees of politeness and different degrees of optionality. Whenever you are polite, we don't directly order anybody to do anything. You give that person a choice. They can do it, they need not do it. Therefore, rather than say open the window, a good manner is to say, can you kindly open that window please, or can you open the window, or you may open the window, rather than say directly open the window. Okay. That is all right in maybe highly intimate situations or not even there. Okay. So, similarly, just see the attached, that is why you say PFA. In mails, whenever you have attachments, you begin by writing PFA. What do you mean? You mean the following: you may see the attached, or you may please find attached what I have to say. Even when it is certain somebody has attended the classes, somebody has got enough attendance, has written the examination, done well, the certificate belongs to that person by right. Even then you do not say give the certificate or award the certificate. The proper thing is to say the certificate may be awarded. Okay. Funds may be released. You are under orders. The fund is meant for this purpose, but you do not write release the funds. You write funds may be released. Okay. So, like each language has its own idiom. This is English idiom. In English, whenever you ask somebody for some favor, or even when you advise them to do what they are duty bound to do, it is a good idea, it is a good manner to use words like may, might, shall, should, can, could, etc., etc. Here is something about, some examples about how they are used. You can pay the fee in 3 installments. It means if you have the money, do it now. Otherwise, you can take time. It is possible. You must attend at least 85% of all classes. This is the rule. If you have 84.9%, then you may not be allowed to appear at the examination. Actually, you won't be allowed to appear at the examination. This rule is a must. Okay. Similarly, you should see some journals on the subject. You can do without looking at those journals, but if you look at them, they will enrich your knowledge on the subject. That is why the writer says you should see some journals on this subject. You ought to respect your elders. There is no law. If you do not leave your chair for an elder person, or if you do not give up your seat for an elder or older person, nobody will take you to a court of law. You will not be arrested. But it is good social manner. So, therefore, in such places you use words like ought. Might, where it is not compulsory, but you would like to. So, you might check before the 13th, or you might check in before the 30th. Okay. You see, you might check in before the 30th, or in hotels you might check out before 12 o'clock. At 12 you must. Okay. Otherwise, you pay charges for the next day, even if you are there for only an hour or less. But if you check out at 10 o'clock itself, that is still better. So, the manager can, if you ask the manager when you should check out, the manager can tell you, you might check out before this time or before 12. Okay. So, they could relax for a few minutes. Suppose people have been at work all the time, and before they go to the next part of the work, you can say they could relax. That is, it is up to them. If they wish to, they could. Otherwise, they can go on, finish early and go home early. They would be picked up by another van. It is certain, and you are being polite. So, you are not saying they will be picked up, in a polite manner of saying the arrangement has been made, they would be picked up by another van. So, do not worry if there has been a breakdown, another van is going to be there soon. So, for could, so for ought to, might. Actually, it may be a good idea for you to look up the net, look up uses, look up relevant books of grammar, and a good dictionary and see the usage, how they are used. Okay. Remember once again, it is best to use and check all the time if you not only want to learn, if you also want to be sure. So using and checking make you sure. Okay. After you become sure, look at some following examples. Is it a polite mail? You may please recall our discussion in this regard. I am sorry. Discussion in this regard. The editor had said we should submit the final draft before the end of June. Will it be possible, or you could also have said, will it please be possible for you to look through the draft and share your comments? I can then prepare the final copy and mail it to the editor. We still have 2 weeks. Very encouraging, very polite, and yet businesslike. It tells the reader that the reader has not done the part of the work reader was expected to do before a certain point of time, and the reader must hurry up, do it as soon as possible. Okay? But it says that in a very encouraging and in a polite manner, partly through sentence construction, partly by using words like, you see, may, okay, then question mark, will it please be possible, then again can, okay, and fairly encouraging, okay, should. Just see, it is these words that make a mail a polite mail. Okay, and this is a very encouraging thing to say. The reader could as well say, we only have 2 weeks, how can we do this? No, the reader doesn't say that. Sorry, the writer doesn't say we only have 2 weeks. The writer says we still have 2 weeks, I mean, we can easily do it provided you help. Okay. Look at the next mail on the same page. Please see the edited draft. What a wonderful way of beginning. Please see the edited draft. I am sorry I have taken the liberty to remove some details. Okay. They are co-authors, right? But one feels that there are more details than necessary, and then simply say, well, these details must go away. The author, that will not be polite. The polite manner is this: I have taken the liberty to remove some details. The writer could have said, I think not all of them seem necessary, okay, or I think not all of them are necessary, okay, or were necessary. It could have been a combination of some of these things, but the writer here uses past and says, I thought not all of them are, and instead of saying are, which will be very certain, the author still says seemed necessary. Okay. To me, to him, all of these things did not seem necessary, but that does not mean they might not seem necessary to the other person. Okay. So, now the report is within the permitted length, but the advantage is that the report had to be within 1500 words, and it is within 1500 words or 500 words as was required. And yet the author says, please let me know if you feel differently, that is, if you do not agree, if you think what I have deleted was also as essential, then we could include that, and we would find other ways of cutting out on words and bringing it within the word limit. And then tended to make the reader feel better, the author says, I may have removed some essential details, by mistake. It is the use of these words that make a polite language. You say, please taken the liberty, use of verb in the past tense, then rather use of seem and is, rather seem and appear rather than is, was or are. Yet please, okay, may. Right. Look at this mail. Is it polite or rude? I won't answer. You can take a good look and compare with this. Is it polite or rude? Obviously, in this earlier thing, do you find except one thanks here, in so many words? Do you see any please anywhere? Any can, could, will, would? Yes, here is will. But it is in the complaining tone, Whereas the same mail could have been written in fewer words. Thanks. Question form. Kindly. Then again, please, etc. And look at the entire tone, the tenor of the mail. Actually, it may be a good idea for you to try and write a mail. Let us say, imagine Mr. M.K. Gandhi is around, a barrister called Mr. M.K. Gandhi is around, and you want to invite him to your school. Imagine, to your school debating society as given here. Write a mail to him asking him to come to the annual event of your debating society. You can include these things: what subject the debate is going to be on, when it's going to happen and where, how many people would speak, how long they would take, If you can, if your society, if your club can give Mr. Gandhi something, will Mr. Gandhi also have to speak? It is better that you tell him if he or will have to speak or if he will have not. Okay, and how long can this speech be? Here is an example. May not be the best, but here it is. Dear Mr. Gandhi, sir, I wonder if you can please find some time to chair a debate at our school on 02 October Monday. You are inviting but not pressuring. Dear Mr. Gandhi, please come. Or rather than say that, you are saying, I wonder if you can please find some time, which means you appreciate that the reader is a busy person. The reader may not be free that day, at that time. You can, as you have given time and date, the reader may not be free. So, you are acknowledging that. Then, given the subject, should we follow the local culture or the global culture? In a very small question, and you have left it at that. The reader will get it easily, and then you add a prompt. This is the subject of our debate. Okay, easy for anybody to understand. We have 6 speakers. They will take 5 minutes each. You can give us your views on the subject in the next half an hour. You may also give away the prizes, So, look at, should, may, please, small sentences, all coming as an option. And then why? Why should that such an eminent speaker come to your school? Are you going to do something fantastic? Perhaps nothing. What can a school do? What can a school debating society give? So, then this is what is the reward. These students may feel proud rest of their lives that you visited them. Imagine M.K. Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi visiting a school although I have had the good luck to see some students whose schools were visited by Gandhiji, and they remember that visit as the highest point of their lives. That was the kind of impact. That can also be a reward. And of course, how is he going to travel? You better say that, but as politely as possible. You don't have to say, don't worry about how you would come, we are going to send you. No, that is arrogance. The proper polite manner says, use can and say, we can of course arrange some transport for you. But finally, showing your gratitude, how can we thank you enough? And then, minimum but essential details of your position. So, your name, you are Jasmine Beatrice. Who are you? You are president of where? Of the debating society club. Where is it? It is in the school called Sarvodaya Vidyalaya. Now, there may be more than a dozen Sarvodaya Vidyalaya in the world. You are talking from Sarvodaya Vidyalaya, Darbhanga. That sort of mail. So, if you have time, you may please write some mails of this kind and check along these parameters. Have you used please, may, might, question sentences, and you will obviously feel that you are doing better and better. You are writing more effective mails, socially more correctly, and you are also enjoying not only writing, we will also be receiving similar mails. Thank you.